What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. We are breaking down our Mr. Irrelevant draft pick, the first one in our illustrious franchise history, and hopefully a key part of our future moving forward. Pun intended, we are breaking down Jaylen Key out of Alabama, coming in at 6'1", 208 pounds. Is one of the few safeties we brought in that's actually eclipsed that 200-pound mark. So one of the things that I enjoy the most is the fact that between his athleticism and his size, just his physical profile lends himself to being able to handle the free safety role as well as come down into the box. But he's a bit of an interesting character. We've never had one, so I've never really had to worry about it, although we've had 7th-round picks, of course. Mr. Irrelevant has always struck me as a player that essentially stands out in absolutely no way, right? It's kind of like, for my anime fans, you know the main character clearly, right? He has, different color hair, different eye shapes, specific eye color, tattoos, something that stands out, and then let alone the powers and all of that. And then you have everybody else, right? You see the background shots of, foot traffic moving and all that kind of stuff, and you wouldn't be able to pinpoint out anybody else that makes sense. Jaylen Key fits into that mold, right? There's nothing about his game in and of itself that really wows you, right? And it's even more interesting because there's not necessarily a consistency factor to it either that makes you say this guy could turn into something purely just between what his physical build is and the job that we've seen Tony Oden do with the DBs. He could become something, right? Maybe that ultimately just means he'll be a core special teamer for us. Maybe we can find a way to turn him into something more, right? But transferred from UAB, his career began there for 4 years, and it's interesting because he just barely eclipsed the 1,200 snap mark for his college career, right? And this is him being a super senior, having his 5th year at Alabama. First 3 years saw less than 100 snaps each season, and then his senior year, something happens, right? And this is where I couldn't find too much more information. I don't know if he won, a competition. I don't know if, injuries happened to the roster and he was able to step in, or if he just took a developmental leap. But he saw almost triple the amount of snaps he needed his first 3 years as a senior with UAB and was able to produce a solid season, right? 3 interceptions. I think he had a handful of pass deflections, some forced fumbles, and then, of course, the tackles in the run game. Then he goes to Alabama, and it can't be understated that Alabama, we know, have always been defensive specialists. They've had deep rotations. He was able to earn a starting role there. So there is a little something to this man. He just doesn't have a calling card as a defender, in my opinion, for what it's worth. In coverage, he's never allowed a touchdown in his career. 2023 with the, Roll Tide, 13 receptions for just 145 yards allowed. So again, this isn't a guy that's absolutely, void of talent and just can't absolutely become anything. But considering the other guys that we brought in, when you look at, undrafted free agents like Tony Adams, an excellent athlete for his size and position. Ashton Davis was another highly athletic guy. We know what Jordan Whitehead was. We know what Jarek Bernard-Converse is supposed to be. So there's a little bit of a mold breaker, but, also in a good way when you want to take a look at the build. Racked up 60 tackles last year, a pass deflection, and an interception. So he's had about 3 or 4 over the course of his career. A little playmaking ability there, but ultimately, some of the things that I like that I was able to see, he understands the fundamentals of pedaling, right? Specifically backpedaling, and how that technique should be implemented when trying to mirror and do different things in coverage. And he doesn't look like he struggles or it's a huge strain. It's not necessarily effortless either, but he has a good base to work with there. Difference-making traits, again, we'll just cap it at the physical build there. Fluid enough to mirror underneath routes and coverage. Does a very good job of being able to read quarterbacks' eyes. If they're locking in, you have guys that are running a was going to say a one-target system, but a one-read and go type situation. He can potentially excel in that area. Brings pop when hitting, as you'd expect from his size. has good closing speed when the play is in front of him. Reaction skills aren't necessarily the best, but he can, kind of recover and get to where he needs to get to. And he has enough speed to play the hash to the sideline, right? We know between linebackers, play between the safeties, Saleh and team kind of like those guys that don't necessarily have limitations in being able to stretch the field, come down, make plays, go from one side to the other, etc. Jaylen Key probably is just about enough athleticism to get there, but there are going to be drawbacks, pretty significant ones. There's coverage lapses. The first thing that I saw when I seen a handful of these was this is that Jordan Whitehead Sauce Gardner issue. And I don't know what it was about those two being lined up on the same field, specifically in the red zone, but you have, let's say, a simple curl route and then a route to the flat. Gardner says, I'll catch the curl guy. Jordan Whitehead should be catching the guy going to the flat, and somehow Sauce Gardner goes to the curl route, and then Jordan Whitehead is doing the same thing. So you want to see if you can get that out of his game completely, and it's also tough to see because he is pretty active pre-snap from what I saw as a communicator. Stiff hips, it's going to impact his recovery ability. There's minimal production overall. It's not like he filled a ton of the stat sheets. It's not like he excelled again in anything he was necessarily doing, but he's not a complete slouch or a guy that just never did anything either. And it's not like he lucked himself into some of these forced fumbles, interceptions that he was able to get. Late in run defense, I don't think he always sees things well, even if stuff is in front of him. Tackling technique isn't great. You see him tend to lead high with the shoulder when he's coming in. Doesn't always have that fundamental wrap-up technique. Can overrun plays and miss tackles with the over-aggressiveness in pursuit at certain points. And, while he's fluid enough to mirror stuff underneath, he will lose routes when receivers have free releases. So the biggest concern with him is going to be foot speed or long speed, I should say, right? And a lot of that is more prevalent when there's a guy with a free release. Jaylen Key's a guy that you want to allow him to kind of get his hands on him and mix things up a little bit to keep him as comfortable as possible. But overall, this could have been a much worse pick, right? I think a lot of us would have maybe loved to have seen still something on the offensive side, but, the Jets are adding something to that room. At this point, I won't doubt anything that they're doing on the defensive side. And if this is a clear miss, nobody will really care, right? As a, 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, it's not going to be a huge shock. And who knows, we'll probably have somebody from the UDFA class that steps up as well. So pay attention to that. I'm going through the list and trying to see if I can confirm whatever names are coming up now for who should be at these practices coming up. And I will start working on cranking out some of those videos. But let me know what you guys think. Some of you always have some gems to drop in the comments for me in terms of information. You guys might have personally known some of these guys in the past, played ball with them, or you were just big fans of the team and or player, and you had some light to shed on there. So appreciate you guys coming through. Stay tuned. I'll catch you guys again. Peace.